What's up? We are live. How's everybody doing today? We're going to be bringing on Big Red Trader in a moment, and we're going to be talking about Hex. We're going to be talking about Pulsechain. We're going to be talking about Pulsex, and we're going to need your help. Remember, I've only been doing this for 60 days, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So any questions that he has that I'm not able to answer, that's where I'm going to need your help. So with that being said, let's get into that. Here we go. What is up? Let me think. Whoops. What is up, bro? How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Hello to everybody in the chat. Thanks for stopping by. So, here we go.
What's up,
Looks
guys?
like
Oh, look at that.
Motley did
Perfect.
make it in.
Sorry.
Is my internet okay, dude?
You're not showing up. Your camera.
We can,
anyways.
Motley, we can hear you, but we can't see you yet.
I can see him.
Joe can see me. Your settings are messed up, sir.
Let me. Well, you guys. Okay, so yesterday we were talking about Hex, and we were getting through the whole like shebang of what it is. And before we got on, I was talking to Joe and asking like where he's at and things he wanted to learn about and whatnot. And he wanted to get into more of the details. Joe, feel free to interject at any point. But do you remember where we left off yesterday? I think we were talking about T shares.
Yeah, the good stuff.
Let me see. You guys can go start jamming. I'm gonna try to see if I can set something with my internet.
Okay.
If this will work.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just connecting. Going.
Yeah. If anybody's watching this, take a second, share this out.
Let's see this. Sorry, I'm still getting set up. There we go. Oh, your camera's back on now. So you can't see us? All right.
Nope.
See you later. Yeah, dude, Joe, I was so frustrated yesterday because like we were just getting to like the meat and potatoes and everything, and then the storm started coming in. So I'm glad we get a pickup today.
Just calm down.
Well, he's getting set up. I do want to show you guys something real quick that I literally just got picked up on Twitter, and this is why it's kind of important for you to get back on Twitter, Joe, and the Telegrams, because especially Twitter, this is like where you find out about information like the quickest as far as like cryptocurrency and this ecosystem and everything. So Twitter's just a really good source of information. And Vince just tagged me in this. So let me go ahead and pull up this person's account real quick.
Is clothing optional? Wait, dog says. I just got back from the beach actually.
Speaking of which, I want you and Jim Rat to go ahead and like I know you guys want to start it on May 1st, but it'd be cool to just like start doing the before pictures. Cause like I want to like get going, and so I want to get nice and fat first, eat a big meal, and then take my before picture.
I was just telling Joe that I was like, I'm gonna get to 250 so that way I can make a bigger drop down.
Yeah, I want to get to like a nice solid fat 210, get a nice food baby for my picture, and then start getting rid of it.
Okay, cool. So I had pulled up a video on T-shares. I don't know if that would be helpful or if you have something you want to share, and also to set up MetaMask.
Like, yeah, we can do that video. I do just want to show. This is a little off topic, so I want to just show this. This is kind of just quick and easy, and this was something we also kind of touched on yesterday. So I want to show this. Let's see, Twitter. So Vince just tagged me in this post, and if you pull that up, all right. So remember how I was telling you, Joe, like there's always these free airdrops and stuff like this, especially in our ecosystem now that a lot of Hexicans are building stuff. A lot of these airdrops are coming to people in the ecosystem. So like in the Hex ecosystem. Now to preface this, I don't know who this person is. I don't know if it's legit or not. This is just something that was just brought to my attention literally like 5 minutes ago. And that's probably why I was just like a minute or two late. I was reading this. So they're saying announcement. We are excited. We're excited to announce the secret airdrop release date is currently set for April 20th, 2022. Hint, make sure you have Hex staked during the time of snapshot, April 20th, 6 p.m. UTC time. More juicy details to follow. Please share this with fellow Hexicans. So what they're saying here, Joe, is essentially if you have Hex stakes, whatever coins they have or whatever they're planning to do an airdrop, they're going to give it to all people that are hex stakers in the ecosystem. So again,
what is that exact? What is that? Whoops.
What is what?
There you go. What is getting airdropped exactly?
So we don't know. It's probably going to be a token, right? So there's going to be some token you can claim if you have hex stakes. Again, I don't know. I haven't even gone through and looked at their page yet. It was literally Vince just tagged me in this post so I could see it. So I'll do more research on this after the stream. But evidently they're building a project and they're targeting the Hex ecosystem. And essentially it looks like if you have Hex staked out, you are going to receive whatever the airdrop is. Now, again, the caveat, be careful, right? Because you might be required to connect your wallet. Do you know what permissions you're giving them? Is it just to read your wallet so they can see if you have hex stakes, or are you giving them permission to access your funds? You have to be careful with this kind of stuff. So tread lightly. Make sure you reach out to people that are more knowledgeable than you that can actually read this stuff when it does go live. Make sure you're not putting yourself in a vulnerable position. But if it's legit, checks out, it's free tokens for hex stakers. So yeah, literally just found out about this like 5 minutes ago, Joe. So this could literally be thousands of dollars that gets airdropped to me for free just because I'm in this ecosystem. Awesome. Yep.
Okay, so when you check something out, what are some things that you're gonna like look for to know if it is like quality? If you like, for me, this is my question, but I'm sure it will be helpful.
I had the same exact question. Yeah.
Yes. So what I'm gonna do after this is I'm gonna go look through this Twitter and see how long have they been up? What kind of messages have they posted? Have they been in the ecosystem long enough? Are they just coming in just recently? If they just came in recently, that might be a little bit of a warning red flag to me. Not necessarily. It just depends. But I'll go through, see what their message has been. Have they been consistent? I just try to get kind of a feel for them. I don't know this person personally or familiar with this account. So I'll just kind of dig through this thread a little bit. But ultimately, it's pretty simple at the end of the day. When the airdrop comes out, what they're saying is like April 20th, or that's when the snapshot's going to take place. And you go to... Oh, what's up, Brand?
Sorry. Belly Brand, what's up? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That is awesome. You were great. Appreciate that support, brother. Thank you.
But the thing that really only matters in this is when you go to claim your tokens, what kind of permissions is it trying to access in your wallet? And you almost always only want it to be able to read your wallet, essentially. Not give it any permissions to spend infinite amount of money, access to just control and do whatever it wants with your wallet. Just like you pretty much just want it to have access to the read function. And again, I know what that looks like in the MetaMask, but like I still not comfortable, especially with like, let's say like one of my main wallets. I wouldn't want to connect one of my main wallets. So like I'll reach out to people in the community that I know personally that are coders, developers, smart guys that can actually read these contracts. Like the contract will be live. They can go read it. It's like, hey, does this look legit? Does there look like there's anything fishy in here or malicious? Is there any access it's giving to? Is it trying to access my wallet in any inappropriate ways, etc.? And then if they give me the thumbs up, say like, hey, it checks out, or hey, this is fishy, X, Y, and Z, then I just go from there, right? So if it's something fishy and they can prove why, then you'll see a bunch of the community members just like they'll start posting stuff like, hey, be careful of this, guys. Like this is asking for this set of permissions, which could put your wallet at a vulnerability, or hey, it checks out, you're good to free claim. And so like for me personally, I rely on people like Stefan Firebun. Those are the developers for the Staker app. Good guys, super great integrity, super smart coders and developers. There's a few other people in the community that I rely on as far as this stuff goes, but you just want to find your kind of like core group of people. And there's like no harm in waiting too, right? Like let the community members that know what they're looking at go in there and check it out first, and then that information gets disseminated throughout the community. So this community is pretty good at looking out for each other and this kind of stuff.
On the oops, wrong one. On the, when you're looking, you said your different wallets that you're going to use to connect it. So I don't think we've talked about this with Joe, but this is also a selfish question, but hopefully it'll be helpful.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. He's breaking up for you, right, Joe? It's not just me. Okay. Just checking. No storms for me today. Now it's Sam's
Oh,
turn
nice.
to. Now it's Sam's turn to have the bad connection.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you might have to try pulling yourself down and bring yourself back up, Sam. Let's see. Okay, you're there. Just okay. Yeah, but this is the stuff I was telling you, Joe. There's just so much free money in the space, and then I think there's only going to become more and more free money in the Hex ecosystem because all of us have done exceedingly well. A lot of us are building our own projects, and this is the community we're involved in, right? So like we want this community to get like the tokens or the projects or be a part of the projects we're building or anything like that. So Hexicans are probably going to get a lot of free money for years to come. Just kind of like in the past, I was the Bitcoin community, then the Ethereum community, and now it's like now we're starting to see that take place in the Hex ecosystem more so than other places.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you.
Damn, my internet is wow, not good.
Man, it's either you or me now.
my setup is like on a 10-year-old device, so it's definitely on my side. Time to upgrade? Yeah, it is definitely time to upgrade. What is the issue? How many wallets do you have? Not necessarily you, but like, how do you structure that? Right, like because you don't necessarily want all your wallets on one. Because we touched on the other day, you don't want all your stakes on one wallet because you can't fucking move them, and then if that one gets compromised, you're SOL. So what's like a good way to think about that or framework for like?
So, first of all, I have a shit ton of wallets, and anyone that's been in the ecosystem and knows me well enough, again, like I was kind of talking earlier about these airdrops, I used to do essentially like airdrop farming, where like I would find protocols that had a high potential of releasing like a coin if you use their like interface or their protocol, like DYDX, Uniswap, what were some other ones, MetaMask. And so I made a lot of wallets. Like I have well over 100 something wallets that I have made just for airdrops specifically. As far as my like actual Hex wallets, like I won't go into details on how many I have. I have a handful, so obviously more than one, but not too many, right? And then I'm now starting to go into what's considered cold storage. So like I'm getting better with my security, so I have a dedicated device. I'm now starting to do because my ladder is already constructed, right? My CD ladder of different stakes going from now all the way out to 15 years. So all the stakes I do now are essentially just rolling out to the end of my staking ladder. So Quattro Cinco, 5,555 days. And so those stakes, I'm not going to be touching those for 15 years. So those are essentially getting thrown out into a separate wallet, hardware wallet, not going to touch it for years to come. And then that's just kind of sealed away. So I'm like, I'll do that for a couple years, and then I'll probably then I'll get another wallet, and I'll do that again. So like maybe every like 3 or 4 years, I'll keep doing that. And so by the end of it, I'll probably have like probably like 4 to 5 hardware wallets of just different long-term 15-year stakes that are just revolving, right? Just continuing on.
You keep one wallet that's like active with a relatively small amount that you use on a regular.
I mean, I have a large main wallet. So like I have like a fairly large main wallet, and then I have a couple sub wallets from there that are the more of like the daily interactions. Like I try not to interact with the main wallet too much because it would make it more susceptible to attacks. I have some like more frequently used sub wallets, and then I have my cold storage wallets I'm not going to touch for 15 years plus. So it's again, you just kind of got to break it up to what makes sense for you. But again, if you start doing a bunch of wallets, then you have, more susceptible to losing those or having them get exposed. So you just have to find a healthy balance. Cool. Do what works best for you, essentially.
Joe, did you have any questions about those wallets or anything?
Not exactly. Not about the wallets. I guess I gotta understand them a little bit better first.
Okay. We got into the T-shares yesterday, and after you got off, after we finished, we were chatting for a few minutes, and from my understanding, the T-shares increase as you get more stakers. So the number of T-shares could actually increase if there's a abundant amount of adoption, right? Is that accurate? But as they end, it takes them away because then they're ending a T-share. I don't have a full good grasp of this.
So T-shares are actually what's deflationary in the system, and it just comes down to the fact that over time, it's just going to require too much economic mass to buy a T-share. So we'll go over that. If you pull up my screen, we'll go back to the go.hex.com that we were on.
Can you zoom in on the pink area?
Yeah, let me see.
That's a little bit better.
Is that better? Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry, I got like a widescreen monitor, so I gotta adjust that.
No worries.
Okay, so we'll just do a brief recap of what we did yesterday, right? This is the price of a T-share. All-time lows were 60 cents. Today we're sitting somewhere around 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000. All-time highs, I think we were close to like 10,000. I think let's see. Yeah, we're like 9,200.
So what was driving that up there? Why is it like this and then it's starting to peak? What caused that?
That was because the token itself hit all-time highs, right? So if we go back to here, let's see, stake. So if we go back to here, right now it costs 21,344 hex per T-share. If the price appreciation of the token is going up, this graph is in USD value right here. The cost of T-share of one T-share in USD value. So as the token appreciates, it's obviously going to cost more and more for one T-share. So this was around our all-time highs of like 56 cents. And so that's why you had almost $10,000 per T-share. So and this is what caused those short-term dips and then spikes, is just changes in the price of the token over time.
Okay. So Monica asked a question. You can't move hex stakes from wallet to wallet. That's accurate, correct?
And unless it's encapsulated. So unless you have encapsulated stakes. So encapsulated stakes are like what Hedron is doing, or technically Staker app is all the stakes you make in Staker app, you're using a Gnosis wallet, and essentially all the stakes, let's say you use Staker app and you make stakes in Staker app, you can essentially transfer all those stakes in your wallet to a new wallet. It's because it's essentially wrapping all those stakes in one go. Hedron is when you make a Hedron stake, which is called an HSI, you're individually wrapping that one individual stake, and that can actually be transferred to other people. That's why, like, if you go to OpenSea, they're selling them as an NFT. So like the NFT is actually a financial product now. You can sell someone your hex stake in the form of that HSI stake. We don't really have to get too much into encapsulated stakes. Just think of it as essentially as a hex stake, and it's in its own individual wrapper. And just like Hex is built on top of Ethereum, this is a subcontract built on top of Hex. So instead of like staking directly with the Hex contract, it gets wrapped in a different contract first, so those stakes can be sold before they mature, like they normally would in the Hex contract. So encapsulated stakes, you can actually transfer those, but they have to be originated as encapsulated stake. If you have existing original stakes that weren't in like a Hedron contract or done on a Gnosis safe, then you can't wrap them after the fact, right? So like if I did a go.hex or whatever, it's hex.go or whatever, stake there, then I can't. It's once it's tied to that wallet, it's done though, because it's already tied. Okay. Yep. And it's not wrapped, and you can't move it. So that's like what I was telling you guys earlier with my like cold storage wallets, the ones that are in hardware wallets that are going out 15 years, and it's just 15-year stakes. That's why like I have to wait for like a certain amount of hex to come out. And for me to do those stakes, I have to wait for it to come out from my original wallet, because we didn't even have wrap stakes back then. So like I have to wait for them to mature, accumulate the hex, and then send it back out, because I can't move those stakes from the existing wallets that I started them in. Did you at least put them into hardware wallets at the time? No, not my main wallet is actually not. It's just on a dedicated crypto device. Okay. Interesting. Yep. We can get into the HSI some other time, but yeah, you were talking about the T-share price as the price. This is the dollar value of a T-share. So as it's going to be related to Hex. So if Hex is going up in value, then it's going to inversely drive the T-share, this pink line, up. Is that accurate? Yep. Yes. Okay. Yep. But you can see over time, it's more or less just gone up and to the right. And I'll show you why that usually is the case, regardless of the Hex price. So this was the meat and potatoes that we really wanted to get into the other day. So you see this share price right here, Joe, where it says 21,344
Yep.
hex per T-share. So that's how much hex it costs you to buy one T-share today. And what I was trying to say before the storm gods got in the way was this number is always going to be, this is the lowest that number in terms of hex will ever be for a T-share. Throughout the history of hex, this number will always go up. And so the way it
This
does
was
this,
317 yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, whenever we chatted. I think it was 317.
it was probably a few hex less than what it was yesterday.
Okay.
And I'll explain what happened in between that time. So what the contract does every day when people are ending their stakes, it looks at you ending your stake and it takes your principal, it takes your hex interest, it takes all those emergency end stake penalties that I was telling you about, and your interest, your yield, and it takes all that and puts it together. So it gives you your lump sum of hex. It remints you that hex, and then, but what it does before it gives you that hex back, it looks at the contract and it looks to see if you were the highest ROI in the system. So it looks to see if you're the highest return on investment in the system. And if you are, you would be essentially able to take your principal, the interest, and the emergency end stake penalty bonuses and stake it for the same length that you did prior. So let's say that stake was a 1-year-old stake. You would be able to take all that, stake it for 1 year, and you would get just as much, if not more, T-shares than you did previously. And so the system doesn't want you to allow you to do that, because then you can just start again like compounding that, right? And you could get essentially like a compounding effect. So what the contract does is it bumps up the cost of a T-share in terms of hex to where you can't do that, where you either have to add more time to the stake, including your principal, interest, and emergency end stake penalties that you earned, or you have to add more economic mass to that stake to get more T-shares. So the system is always making sure that you can't restake everything that you've earned for the same length of time and get an equal or greater amount of T-shares. And so it recalibrates itself to up that number. So that number back in the day was, I think, as low as like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think it was low as like 6,000 something hex per T-share way back in the day. And so now
you could
we're already
basically have gotten
4.
You could have gotten 4 T shares, back in the day for basically this similar price to what it is right now. And
yep. But as people have realized the higher ROI every time a stake comes undone, that number gets ratcheted up. So it always gets ratcheted up over time.
So I want to paraphrase just to make sure that I'm understanding this. So you stake for 1 year, you
Yep.
put up, say, 1,000 hex or whatever the number is. You earn, say, another 150 hex from interest that you earned through that year, and then you get, say, another 50 hex from people end staking early, right? And then
Yep.
say somebody forgets their seed phrase, and then it's bleeding them out, and everybody that goes to the pool, right? So all 4 of those things together, they're calculating on that day. So anybody who has their stake ending on that day, whoever has the highest ROI, is that's what the T-share is based off of, to make the amount per T-share increase.
Not that day. It looks at the highest ROI in history since day 1 till the current day. So it's not necessarily that day. There's days where that number could stay the same because no one's stake came undone that actually realized the highest ROI in the system. So like it's looking back to the entire prior history of the Hex ecosystem as far as the ROI goes. So if, let's say, all the stakes come out and no one realized the highest ROI in the system, then it doesn't recalibrate itself. It's looking for that highest ROI in the history of the ecosystem, not just that day.
Okay, so if there's, say, 10,000 people who have stakes, or say 100,000 people who have stakes, it takes whoever has the highest return, independent of how long the stake is. So somebody has a 1 year or a 15 year, like whoever has the highest return on investment, it takes it off of that one.
Wait, say that again. 1 year and a 15 year. The 15 year wouldn't even be up yet. It's when the stake ends is when the contract verifies that.
To adjust the T-share rate.
Yes, yeah. It's only on stakes that are ending.
Okay, so anything from today backwards, basically, not into any. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Because obviously anything staked out longer, and we'll go over this too with bonus T shares, is going to give you a more favorable ROI, and we'll explain that here in a second. But yeah, so this is really crucial, Joe. So this is why it's better to accumulate as many T shares as you can early on, because T shares, think of them. This is how I explain it to people. Think of them as your money printer, right? This is kind of the issue we have with the US dollar right now, right? Because the Federal Reserve is just a big money printer. They just continue to print our money into oblivion. But that money doesn't go into our pockets, right? There's middlemen, there's politicians, there's business, there's other places that money gets sunk into. We don't actually see it on our end as the blue collar, white collar people, but what we do see is the inflation of our commodities, everything, our services. Like we see all the negative sides of it, but none of that capital actually ends up in our pocket. And the Hex ecosystem, it puts you as close to the money printer as possible. And those money printers are T-shares. So you want to accumulate as many of those money printers as you can early on, and you want to have them in the ecosystem as long as possible, right? If the Federal Reserve gave you access for a money printer, you would want that thing for as long as they were willing to give it to you, right? So it's the same thing in Hex, except there is no middleman between you and the money printer. Hex is willing to loan you that money printer for you to give up your ability to sell today for whatever terms you agree with. It's like, I would like to borrow this money printer for 1 year. So what you do is, let's say you bought 10,000 Hex. You turn your 10,000 Hex into the contract, and then you say, I want to stake for 1 year. Contract's like, cool, takes your coins. It actually burns those coins out of existence. They actually no longer exist. Like, it actually burns the tokens. So again, you're creating scarcity in the market. Then it's going to give you shares in place of those tokens. So T shares, it's going to give you a certain amount of T shares. And every day up until the end of your stake, it's going to mint you that Hex as your reward for not being able to sell. And then at the completion of that stake, you're going to be able to get your principal, your yield in the form of interest, and that, or it's inflation, but we just call it interest, make it easier. And then all the emergency and stake penalties, you'll get all of that. But and here lies the problem, right? Because we just went over the share price as far as T-shares go. A year later, the amount of Hex per T-share is going to be a lot more than it is today. It could be thousands of more Hex. And then you couple that with price appreciation of the token. Let's say Hex is no longer 11 or 12 cents. Let's say it's at a minimum at 56 cents, right? You're having to pay 5x just on top of the token appreciation, and then the T-share price ratcheting up. So it gets crazy hard to acquire T-shares, maybe just even a year. I mean, you've seen that chart was showing what the T-share price has done in 2 years, and it's gone from 60 cents, and even at this 85% dip, it still costs you $3,500 as opposed to 60 cents at all-time lows. And all-time highs at 56 cents, we were looking at almost 10 grand per T-share. So you really want to acquire as many of those money printers in the ecosystem as soon as you can, because that share price, when someone ends their stake and that ROI, that new high ROI has been realized, it's going to continue to ratchet up. So it's always going to cost more Hex per T-share over time. And then you couple that with price appreciation, it becomes very, very hard to obtain a T-share. Like in the future, you might only be able to afford some B shares, right? Or M shares. And it just continues to go on like that. Even people that have been in the system since the beginning will eventually not be able to afford a T-share just with how this mechanism is set up, because even we get weeded out eventually just due to either you need to supply more economic mass, or you can leverage more time to acquire T-shares as well, which we can show you here in a second on that. Go ahead, Sam.
That's my. Go ahead, Joe.
About that.
What exactly do you mean about the time part? I guess.
Okay. Can you pull that back up, please, Sam? So I can show them.
And I'm sorry, like my internet is. I don't know.
You're good. Yeah. Okay. So we haven't discussed this yet, Joe. So you're good. Okay, gotcha. So this is the time side, right? So right now it costs 21,344 Hex per T-share. It's to get one T-share. So let's say you want to stake 1 day, right? Can you see that where you right down here where it says you'll get 0.999 T-shares, is essentially one?
Yep.
Let me show you something. So let's stake it 1 year, right? what just happened right here. Now I have 1.199 T-shares, essentially 1.2 T-shares. Okay. So let's say you want to stake it for 2 years now. So what was that?
700 and something. 60 maybe?
No, 30. Is that right?
Yeah, 730, yeah.
So now you get 1.4. So every year you stake out longer, you get 20% more shares. And again, this is kind of modeled after the traditional certificate of deposit. You know how you stake out longer in a CD, like 1 year they'll give you, oh, we'll give you 1%. If you do 2 years, maybe we'll give you 1.2%. If you do 5 years, okay, we'll give you a full like additional 2%, something like that. So every year you stake out longer, you get 20% more interest. So if you were to up to 10 years, so let's do a 10-year stake. Whoops, not that many. Okay, see how it's 2.99 T-shares?
Yep.
But I never changed the amount of hex I'm buying. So I'm still buying 21,344 hex, but to get more T-shares, I've decided I'm willing to delay gratification for the maximum amount of time as far as bonus goes. And I'm essentially giving myself an additional 200% because I'm willing to stake out 10 years. So 20% for 10 years equals additional 2 more T-shares, essentially.
Okay.
So you can leverage your time if you're willing to delay that gratification for more T-shares.
Yeah.
Now, so that's how that works. Now, you can do a Quattro Cinco stake, which is the max length that you can stake within the contract. But you can see right here, this didn't change, right? It's still 2.999. Again, the bonus shares only goes out to 10 years at 20% additional per year. But this kind of goes back to what I was speaking earlier. You might be like, why would I want to stake out past 10 years if I don't get any more bonus T-shares? And then it actually took us a while to kind of learn this early on. Again, there wasn't a lot of information out there. We didn't really understand T-shares that well, and we didn't really get the concept. Even Richard himself in the beginning Richard fucked us up because at one of the streams he's like, yeah, I don't really know why you stake out past 10 years. That's your bonus. Like, there's no real point to it. But one of his Dev Kyle, actually did a video. It's just like, actually, you might want to consider doing past 10 years because just of that concept I explained to you earlier, the Federal Reserve and money printers, imagine that cost of that money printer is always going up. Remember, right now it costs 21,344 hex, but 10 years and out, it's going to cost probably well over hundreds of thousands of hex. So wouldn't you want that money printer at today's prices printing you money all the way out that additional 5 years when you could have bought it down here for $21,000 hex, as opposed to maybe it costs 500,000 hex in the future or 1,000,000 hex? And then you also couple that with price appreciation of the token. Imagine hex is like $5-10 at that point, and you have to pay 500,000 hex per T-share. Like, those numbers get crazy, and this is why T-shares are eventually deflationary in the system. They just become too costly for you to even purchase one. And so eventually we'll be doing all these nominations in B shares and M shares and so on and so forth. But this is the sticky part of hex. This is where people that they're willing to delay gratification and leverage their time. They're able to acquire more shares, have those money printers in the ecosystem for longer at a cheaper rate if they bought it back in the day than if they did today or tomorrow or 5 years, 10 years down the road. All the people that went out 10 years, yeah, they got all their bonus T-shares, but then that last 5 years, the people that went ahead and staked out past them, that were willing to forego and leverage their time even more so. Imagine what happens when no one can afford T-shares anymore, right? Because they've gone so expensive. It costs a lot of hex to acquire a T-share, the price appreciation of the token. And you have one of those stakes that is 15 years out. What you're actually realizing is you have a piece of the pie, right? Over time, as T-shares come out of the system, but you have very long stakes going out into the future, the pie around you is shrinking. So you still have your same slice of pie that you bought years ago, but over time, the pie is shrinking around your slice. So your slice is in fact becoming a larger piece of that smaller pie. And so you accrue more and more and more interest in the form of that hex inflation over the years, and you were able to acquire it at a crazy cheaper value than 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
And so then it gets really, the speculativeness and the stickiness of all this gets crazy, because it's a constant battle of trying to acquire as much as you can now and leverage as much time as you're willing to do to essentially get a biggest slice as you can, as long as you can in this ecosystem.
Wow, that's interesting. So the because of the way that the T-share, the rate at which there's more hex required pretty much anytime a hex stake ends to renew that for that same duration. That's accurate, right?
Yep.
And
now
so
you may get a discount in like the short term if you were able to catch a dip, right? Just on the price in USD terms. So like right now, you would be getting a discount as opposed to the all-time highs we had like 6+ months ago, where it was almost 10,000. Now you're getting like a 3-to-1 deal, because if you're buying hex now in this dip and you're staking it, you're getting a much better rate, just because of we're in a big dip. So it's a good time to, this is why like we really do stress, this is the time to onboard people. This is the time to accumulate as much hex as you can and get those stakes in now, because this is a discounted rate. But like you see this chart, these dips are only momentary, and then it takes off again and you get left behind. You miss your opportunity. Let's see.
I think we lost Sam again.
Oh, did we? Okay. So do you have any questions on that, Joe?
I'm still having
tough.
a little trouble understanding exactly what the T-share is.
It took
do you keep the T-shares? Like,
so no, you lose them, right? So, okay, so remember how I told you you take the coins to the contract and they essentially get burned out of existence, and you get shares in place of them?
Yep.
Same thing when you go and turn in your stake at the end. Your stake is up. You can't continue it on. Remember you asked me earlier, like, hey, can I just add money onto it or increase the length out later? No, you can't.
Oh, you're automatically out once the stake is over.
The stake is over. You chose that time and it was done. You have to turn it in or you'll bleed out. So there's a bleed out period after a 2-week grace period. If you don't end your stake, you'll start bleeding out 1% every 2 weeks. So you'll be fully, so never forget about your stakes. You'll be fully bled out at the end of 2 years if you don't end your stake.
Jesus,
and that penalty goes to the stakers as well. So just like ending your stake early goes to the stakers, or if you neglect and don't end your stake, that penalty goes in to the stakers as well. Because if you don't end your stake, what you're actually doing is you're diluting the rest of the pool. Because if you don't, and this is the thing with crypto, right? Everything requires a function to be run. So if you don't end your stake, your T-shares are staying in the entire ecosystem. So Joe's T-shares, let's say you bought 10 T-shares, you staked it out for 15 years, your T-shares are staying in there. And let's say it's 15 years is up and you haven't end staked for the past year. Your T-shares are continuing to dilute everyone else's like yield, everyone's inflation, because they're still in there. You're not earning extra interest for it, but your T-shares are still in the system, so people are getting less until either you end it or there's something called good accounting, where anyone can go and end stake. It's not end stake, but it's just good accounting, so it stops the penalties. Anyone can go in there and do that to any address, end a stake that's been done. And we've actually seen it the past couple of days. People have been good accounting stakes that have just been forgotten, and they have almost 2 years worth of penalties. We had higher payouts. If you go look, I think actually I can just pull it up. I think we had like eight hex payout the other day. It was literally stakes that have been bleeding out for almost 2 years now. Let's see if I can go back to that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. I don't know if that's updated yet, but I think yesterday's payout was 8 hex. But yeah, so your T-shares, if you don't get them out of the system, you're diluting everyone. Everyone's getting less yield over time. So again, it incentivizes people after you've bled out to go in there, good accounting, and all those penalties you had for the year or say 2 years gets dispersed out to the staker class. Your T-shares get removed out of the system. Again, when a stake ends, you're going back to the contract like, hey, here are my shares. It uses those shares to calculate your principal, your yield, and then their emergency end stake bonuses or bleed out bonuses. And it gives you that back in the form of coins. It mints the coins back into existence. You just increase the supply, and those T-shares got removed out of the pie. So now people are going to be earning more yield, and now you have more tokens that are now liquid and you can sell on the market. You now have your ability to sell back on the market if you so choose, or you can stake it out further, or you can scrape off a little bit of your interest and restake the principal. It's just, again, it's up to the user to decide how they want to navigate the system.
This is really valuable information, and I wish my internet wasn't just shitting bad perpetually. Like,
you can go back and watch it later.
We're covering it again tomorrow. We're covering it again tomorrow, so it's okay. We're gonna go.
I just keep losing this.
I always forget that people don't know t-shirts until Motley starts explaining it, and everyone in the comments is like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Oh my god, we need to learn more about this shit." Because people you get lazy after a couple months of sideways price action.
This T-shares took the community halfway through the adoption amplifier phase, so like almost 6 months to really realize how important they were, and we still didn't really fully grasp them. It took someone like Dev Kyle, who is essentially one of the people that kind of created the concept of it, to kind of align us on how to understand them and how important they are, because this is the revolutionary part of Hex. Nothing like this actually ever existed before. Like, this is, in a way, it replicates the idea of compounding interest, and then it also gamifies it where you can't just do a shorter stake. Like, it does reward the people that are willing to delay gratification and keep those money printers in the ecosystem longer, giving up their ability to sell at current time, but they get much more rewarded at the end. But when that time is up, like, it's done. Like, now you have to play the game at today's prices, and the T-share cost is going to be much higher in terms of Hex. The price appreciation of the token, if it's anything else like in crypto, is probably going to be much, much higher. So like, it compounds so quickly. If you don't do your stakes and get your Hex in now or early on, it's going to cost you a lot more, and you're going to get a lot less in the future. So it's really something you have to plan out well.
Is that something that you would, not that you do anything different, like, because I'm sure you're happy with where you're at, but when you look back at the stakes you've made, would you have pushed the time out further, given what you know now?
I think most people say that always too, like at some point, right? Like, I think even me, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I did my first 5 stakes different. I think you have to do it because what are you, like, you can't be the perfect study where you're like max T-shares, my first day in Hex, and like you pull that so far out. I can only imagine you can, other than Sam, obviously he might strategize like that.
Well, especially early on when we just didn't know enough, right? Like, we didn't have enough pieces. There wasn't this information out there like there is now. And so a lot of us were fortunate enough that we got to correct it to some degree. Oh, excuse me. Because there was the emergency in-stake function, which you could actually run early on. And if you had stakes within the first like 2 to 3 years, even go a little bit further out, you could end them early. The penalty wasn't that bad. And then you could take that, even though you had a penalty, so you cut into your principal, you could take that and restake it out longer and get more T-shares. So a lot of us
3 times as many.
Yeah.
If you did
it kind of depends. So a lot of us had to reshift kind of our focus once we understood T-shares better. And there was massive emergency in-stake penalties. Well, not massive. There's just a lot of us doing it early on because we were correcting our ladders as much as we could, right? So we took a lot of our heavily weighted early stakes, we ended them, and then we maximized our time, and we still walked away with more T-shares even after the penalties. And so in that way, we were able to do kind of a short-term correction. We couldn't probably fully correct how we wanted it, but our staking ladders look a lot better than what they would have if we didn't use that function. And that was something else that kind of just came from the ecosystem that Richard never really planned for. He didn't plan for the emergency in-stake function to be a tool to actually be used to go back and correct staking ladders as people grasp the concepts of how Hex works early on in the ecosystem. So it ended up being used as a tool that we corrected our ladders. And I guess to go back to Sam's question, the one thing I probably changed on my staking ladder is I would consolidate more of my stakes, and I would have less frequency. So right now I have a higher frequency than what I would like. I would consolidate probably like 3 to 5 of those, clump them together, and then I would just have less frequently coming out over time, and larger stakes. So that's how I would probably adjust my ladder going in the future. Well, that's how I am doing it now.
My first 3 stakes were 365 days. The first one was. And I was just like, 365, I was just playing around, like 365, like 500 days and 700 days. About 200 days in, I end staked all of them and just put them 4,000 plus because I was like, what the hell is this? And this ain't going to do much. Because you just realize, because I didn't have the economic mass, if I had $77 million like the guy today who did a 12-day stake, yeah, of course he's going to get yield on that. But again, he'll never be able to stake that $77 million and get the same rate ever again, just from that 10-day stake. It's so confusing if it's your first couple days in, because like a lot of the concepts kind of overlap, but it's like a reflexive system. It's all just very reflexive. It's
And
just
this is
like
this is what I recommend for you, Joe. And again, you still have to go off of what you're comfortable with. But usually my recommendation for people that start constructing their first ladder, I like to hit like kind of just the 3 milestones of like 15, 10, 5. So you have essentially Quattro Cinco stake, which is the max you can do. So again, just think of those T-shares. You're going to have them as long as possible in the ecosystem for essentially the cheapest rate that you can afford. So the hex per T-share now, and it's going to accrue interest for the longest, right? And so that can actually be your smallest amount of money that you put in too. But since it's going to be in the system the longest, and it's going to be receiving the highest amount of bonus shares and the longest time of accruing those penalties, it could be the most profitable, even though you might put in the least amount of principal. So let's say you put like $500 for 15 years, then you're like 10-year mark. Okay, let's put 1,000, and then like the 5-year mark, you can put like 2,000. So like this is a ladder that people, Hex Lion, he's part of the Crypto Sparbook guys, German guys that toured the US. He kind of popularized this ladder where you can do a descending principal ladder over time, because you might have less principal you're putting in, but it's going to be in the ecosystem longer, accruing yield longer, emergency and stake bonuses longer. And so even though you're doing less principal, you're going to accrue potentially more wealth over time because it's staying in the system longer, and you get rewarded for longer periods of time.
So that's
And he's gone.
this is why I asked for the invite. His internet's blowing thumbs. I don't know. Does it matter if you're streaming? No, I guess it doesn't matter who's streaming as far as because it's on
No,
a separate server.
he's good. We'll go on fine. He just doesn't
Sam,
get to ask.
You just pop in and out, ruin the
he just
algo,
doesn't get
destroy the channel. I mean,
he doesn't get to ask all his bazillion questions he has.
I don't know. It's
like,
probably not, but
no.
I'm gonna have to fucking do something about this.
Hey, Starlink is good as long as you don't have storms.
That's why I came in to double you back. I think we should talk. What do you think about the staker at V2? You looked into it all yet, Molly?
No. Is there any new information out on it?
They did a stream on it.
No. Would they mention?
Well, they like brought up like some of the pages and stuff, and I just didn't know if that was a thing or if they were just like showing some of the features that they might be adding. Which I don't know much about. I'm trying to learn more about Staker app because I get asked about it a lot, and I don't use it personally.
Yeah, I used it for like a tutorial video early on, and then haven't used it much after that. I use it, for me, it's just more of like checking my balances, stakes, all that kind of good stuff. What's Sam saying? I'm gonna stay down and see if that helps. Pull up my share screen, Sam, so I can show Joe this real quick. All right, Joe. So this place is called hex.vision. This is, funny enough, this is actually created by one of the Staker app developers called Firebun. And it shows you just about every analytic and statistic that you want to know in the Hex ecosystem. So I want to go down here and show you this. I use this when I'm building out my, let me make sure you guys can see this. Okay, yeah. I use this when I'm building out my staking ladder because these orange bars show you all the existing Hex stakes in the ecosystem. So starting today, all the way out to 15 years, these are all the stakes. So you can see out here. So this is where we're at currently. And then usually every year mark, you have these spikes where everyone just kind of focused on the new year, right? And then right here, this is the 10-year mark. You can see there's a big stack right here because, again, early on, a lot of us put a bunch of stakes, big stakes at 10 years because this was maximizing our bonus. And we didn't really understand the ecosystem and how this project works. So a lot of us stacked up at the 10-year mark. And as you can see, it's very barren out here, except for a few large stakes. It's very barren out here between, let's say, almost like the 11 to 13, 14 year mark. You have this big open spot. So even out here, so like you don't have to necessarily do 5,555 day stake. Let's say you wanted to put it in between these two very large stakes coming out. Maybe you want to put it right here, because when these come out, there might be a giant supply shock, right? If they decide to sell a bunch of this. So maybe you want to front run this stake, or maybe you want to come out here in 2033 where there's like literally no supply whatsoever. You know, the supply shock of the 10-year mark is kind of worn off and there's literally just no hex on the market. Maybe you want to put a big fat stake in here. Maybe when you're doing some of your lesser stakes, you want to be in between these two like large pillars. You want to be here where there's just not much, again, less supply during here in 2026 in November and 2025 November. Like maybe you want to be in the middle of this. So you can come out here, pre-plan your stakes, and try to find areas where you have little to no supply of hex coming out. So this is a really good site to go and kind of you strategize and map out your staking ladder. I use this every time when I would go set up my stakes, and I try to find gaps where there's very little supply coming out. Thanks, Sam.
What do you think about the people that do 15-year stakes? What do you think the percentage of people that did 15-year stakes in the first 100 days will actually wait until they're over all the way?
Very little.
I would say maybe 1%, because the number is going to be so astronomical.
Well, the crazy thing too, and I think Patrick Hexline, again, one of the Crypto Sparbuck guys, did the math on this, and a lot of people will probably end their stakes early because, like, with again, if this is all successful and continues on, Joe, like the amount of money those 15-year stakes is going to be ridiculous, right? With all the yield, the emergency in-stake bonuses they accumulate, and then the price appreciation of the token, a lot of people are just going to end it early. So we can brush up on this again. As far as emergency in-stake penalties go, after 50% completion, you get your principal back. Anything less than that will cut into your principal. Anything greater than that, you'll get your principal plus a little interest. So as you go further out, you'll get more and more interest. The only caveat to that is the stake has to at least run for 90 days. Anything less than 90 days, even if you're halfway over completion, will still cut into your principal. So you really shouldn't be staking that small anyways when you're new. You should be staking out further. Like even when I first started, none of my stakes ended until like the second year. And so then as you go out through time, you want to make sure, wait, I just lost track of what I was saying. Oh, the emergency and stake bonuses. So like those 15-year stakes, even if you are, let's say, I think Patrick did the math, like if you end the stake even like a month or two before it's done at a 15-year stake, the amount of interest you accrue that last couple months could be like a third of what you actually extract from it. Because remember, it goes back to that like piece of pie strategy I was telling you about. You've had those T-shares in the system so long, people could no longer, after like the next 5 years, people couldn't afford a T-share. So your piece essentially was staying the same, but the pie around it was shrinking. As T-shares came out of the system, people needed more economic mass, needed to leverage more time. And so even though it might have seemed like a small piece of the pie early on when you first started, that pie has shrunk around your piece over time. And so the amount of interest you earn, that last little bit, that last little leg, that last like year of your 15-year stake is astronomical. It gets
I heard
crazy.
It's 90% roughly of like can be up to 90% of your entire bag. Because did you ever play RuneScape, Big Red Trader?
I did not, no.
No, when you were a kid. Because it took 90% of the effort to do like the last 2 levels. Like you would do 97 levels and then you'd have to redo all that amount of effort for the last 2 levels. And it's kind of like that in Hex. It's like if you go from that 4,000 day max multiplier, but then you add the last 1,555 days, you'll probably get in those last 15 days, because of the curve and of what the price will be at that point, your gains will pretty much be like the entirety of the rest of your bag.
Oh, wow.
This is for like the longer stakes, the maybe like 1 to 2 year stakes. It's not as large, but like when you get out to like the 10 to 15 year range, even ending it just a little bit early is pretty, like you'll lose out on massive amount of gains. And this is why I tell people is like structure. I mean, do what works for you. there's some people that have great staking ladders. There's some people that are just like, no, I would just want to maximize T shares, and they send it all out. But you have to know yourself, right?
Yep.
Like, so like I always try to caveat people. It's like, yes, T shares are very important. Having that money printer in the ecosystem at the cheapest possible rate, as long as possible, is good. But make sure that's a good strategy for you, because maybe it's 5-10 years down the road and you're like, fuck, like I would like to realize some gains at some point. Like maybe you know that you need to pull some money out along the way to keep your hands off the big stakes, the 10-15 year marks. And like for me personally, I wanted stuff coming out in between. So like I have stakes coming out every year, but as time goes on, I've realized like I've needed less and less of those. And all I do now is I end up accumulating most of my hex, bunch it together, and then I just throw it out. So it's like, was I really doing myself a favor having a bunch of stakes coming out every year, or should have I just consolidated and put it out further and further? But I still probably needed at least a little of that initial capital, so like I would be comfortable and I didn't have to worry about stuff. It's a balance. And what turned out to be a blessing as well, turns out Richard Hart came out with a whole new ecosystem, a new project, Pulsechain, Pulsex. I had stakes ending that gave me capital to reinvest in more products, and then that's going to help ramp me up even higher, right? If those tokens do well or do a fraction of what Hex did, I'm just able to funnel that back into more Hex and to just growing my net worth and just continuing to ramp up. So like having a good staking ladder, I think, is probably the best you can do. But again, you have to do what works, what makes sense for you, and you know yourself better than anyone else, so you can gauge what is advantageous for you.
You just have to realize that you have to wait at some point. Like there's no Sam likes to try to think about ways not to wait at all, but it's like this system is really meant for a couple of years wait.
Yeah.
Like a year or two. I think 2 years is a fair thing. Like if you have a good amount of money in general, like as just an adult, like 2 years, your financial situation will be different if you strategize as someone who is smart.
Can you guys hear me?
But many people have had millions and millions and millions of Hex who have effed it up, threw everything away, lied, said Richard was fudding, or got butthurt about something, or just got nervous about whatever during a dip, and they sell.
Well, you know what happened? They left it liquid. And this is why this is another kind of X factor, Joe, that's kind of come about from this cryptocurrency, is people underestimate how valuable this staking is, because it's enabled this community to become one of the wealthiest communities in crypto. Because the thing with crypto, like we were saying earlier, you're either a founder or you found the right asset and you've accumulated it and you've held it through all the gains. You've held it through the first 10x, 100x, 1000x, 10,000x, and that's how you truly become wealthy. 99% of people in crypto don't fucking do that shit. That's why you see the Bitcoin, almost 50% of Bitcoin is in the top 2,000 wallets, and most of them are broke plebs. They barely have 1 or 2 Bitcoin if they're lucky. Otherwise, they'll have like a tenth of a Bitcoin and they're hoping it goes to $1 million someday. But for the most part, a lot of them sold on the first 10x, 100x. Bitcoin did a 6.9 million X. Almost zero humans that I know would have held through a 6.9 million X. They would have sold at some point, or sold a large enough percentage of their bag at some point. At the first 1000x, 10,000x, 100,000x, million X, they're going to sell at some point. That staking feature literally holds you to your word that you agreed to years ago. And it's just by code. There is no third party. There is no customer service you can ask to get your refund. Like, you're either going to make it and realize those gains, or you're going to end early. You're going to take your profits and you're going to take a penalty, whatever that penalty is. And then that everything else is going to go to the people that continue to hold their word and continue to earn that high yield because they're living up to what they said they were going to. And then they get to realize the crazy gains down the road. So it's a beautifully balanced financial system that's just never existed before. There's never been a system like this that's locked up this amount of money for this period of time. I mean, there's nowhere you can go on earth that you can find over $8 billion locked up for an average of 6.4 years. And it is locked up by code. You cannot remove it. There's nothing like that exists. Like when Richard says this is like Nobel prize worthy, like it really is. Like this is something truly different in the game that's never been created before, and it truly does monetize your time. It is the closest thing I've ever seen to truly passive income, which I've always been looking for. I get to lay my head on my pillow every night and just know my T-shares are just printing.
Oh, that's the biggest part, though.
There's
That's
no
the biggest part.
there's no tenants. There's no middlemen purchasing my stock for me. There's no precious metal I have to worry about keeping secure, gathering dust, not appreciating. All the externalities of all these other asset classes just don't exist with Hex. And this is why, like I was saying, like this is like I've liquidated my entire real estate portfolio and I put it into this. It's just I've been searching for this asset class since, like I was telling you, when I was 5-7 years old. I've been looking for this, right? And this is it. And no one even knows about this shit yet. We have less than 100,000 active stakers like today. It's truly going to change this world. And it's going to create some of the wealthiest people on planet Earth.
Jesus, this is incredible, man.
It's fucking wild, bro. And let me put a little bit more fire under your ass too. I know it's, and again, you have to calibrate it for everyone and like what they're comfortable with. And yes, you want to go in this ecosystem and play with it yourself, but you're at a pivotal point in this ecosystem, whether you realize it or not. And the whole Richard Hart ecosystem is coming. Pulsechain, a whole new layer 1. You're going to get a copy of all the Hex you buy now. So you'll have 2 versions of Hex, one on Ethereum, one on Pulsechain. That's massive. You only get that opportunity once right now, and to get 2 money printers, to get two things of T-shares minting you interest for the next 1 to 15 years. You only get that chance once, and like you're on the precipice of it, and you're at the precipice of like an 80-85% dip. So I would strongly advise, like, you really got to ramp up your research, put in the time. I know you're doing it, but like Richard says last stream, his dev said Pulsechain could go live mid-May. Will it? Maybe. I'm skeptical, but it's close, right? Like, it is close. And this is the only time you're going to have the ability to buy your Hex now and get that copy, get 2 money printers on 2 different chains for free, or the cost of one, right? You don't get that opportunity again. After that, you have to decide which Hex to buy, one on Pulsechain, one on Ethereum. It also enables you to start diversifying right away on the new chain. You'll have a copy of Hex on the new chain. Maybe you want to allocate a percentage of your Hex into Pulsechain or Pulsex. I don't know if you got into any of the sacrifices. If you didn't, maybe you want to start dipping into them. And if you had a copy for free, just because of the Hex you bought today, like that just seems like the logical play, for at least for me. So like, you really want to take advantage of this opportunity, because believe it or not, yes, it's 2+ years down the road, but it's hella pre-viral. This opportunity comes like once in a lifetime to double up on these crazy money printers. You have to take advantage of this time. So
can you even have to go balls deep? You just have to be aware and secure and like start DCAing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to actually, every 30 seconds, I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, every 30 seconds on my end, I lose things for like 20 seconds. And I
think it's just your end.
It is. And I want to be a part of this conversation. I also want to hear the conversation. So I'm gonna end it just because I can't comprehend anything that's going on.
Yeah, dude, we went. I think everyone got a good amount of info.
Definitely. Yeah.
There you go.
Just remember, the best part about Hex is that you can focus on your other business ventures, because you have a product that you're not staring at the price chart every 5 fucking seconds. Now there's 2 of you, Sam.
What's up, Joe? What were you saying though before?
Really? So you guys told me to be watching Richard Hart. What would you guys suggest? Like, I should be studying as fast as possible to learn this.
I mean, what concepts do you want to learn more? Like, what are you? What would make you feel more comfortable to start investing more and staking, and like where do you feel like you're lacking right now as far as information goes? And then I can probably direct you in the right ways, right paths to kind of look down.
I would really like to understand these T-shares a little bit better, most likely.
Okay. So I would go look at, I think, Hodl Dog and Crypto Coffee. They're probably some of the smartest guys we have in the community, and they're very good with just creating bite-sized information. Where 90
Crypto Coffee,
Crypto Coffee, and then Hodl Dog, HODL Dog, DOG.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
I think they both have a couple T-share videos. It's just they're really good. They do like bite-sized information, where a lot of us are just lazy and we like to stream and have a good time like this, and you have to go through hours and hours and hours of content. So they're really good channels to go follow and get the specific videos and information you want.
What exactly is this Hedron I keep hearing? You talked about it, and I keep seeing it pop up. What exactly is that? I guess I don't.
Yep. So Hedron was just another airdrop token to the Hex community, right? So a Hex community member named Alex built the contract, and essentially he decided to give it to all Hex stakers, kind of like the one I showed you on Twitter earlier. Like, hey, if you have Hex stake, you're going to be eligible for this airdrop. Hedron was the same thing. If you had a Hex stake before, whenever they did the snapshot, essentially he designed it where that that Hex stake was also minting you a new token called Hedron. So all of us that had Hex stakes existing up to the point of Hedron, we essentially were able to mint all this Hedron. And even today, if you make a Hex stake, you can go in there and it'll be minting you Hedron as well. I can send you the links where you can go and claim all that stuff after you make your stakes. But every day that your stake mints you Hex, it also mints. There's a separate contract that's also minting you Hedron as well. You can go claim that, and that Hedron is accessible to you at any point. So it accumulates every day. But unlike Hex, where you have to wait to the fruition of the stake, you can access it at any time.
His brain explode, dude. His brain explode,
dude. It's a lot. Don't focus on Hex. Hedron will be there. Hedron will be there.
But there is a 3x multiplier that is going down.
Yeah, I know, but
it's so hard to explain. You don't want people to rush.
And focus on Hex. It's the most important part of this whole ecosystem. Everything is based off of it, and then you can scoop up whatever. Like Hedron will be there. You'll have time.
Hex is the asset that will be in everyone's wallet in 15 years.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of these other things, nobody knows. I mean, you could say anything about what'll be around, but immutable contract, it'll be around in some shape or form.
The most valuable thing in this ecosystem right now, and I mean all of cryptocurrency, is Hex. It is the premier store value that earns you trustless yield while you hold it. That's it. Like, that's what everyone's looking for. It's the ultimate passive income. And that thing will be, where else do you see almost $7 billion locked up for 6.5 years? It just doesn't exist. It will be here for the long term.
Yeah, it just has to be pretty much.
Will, in my eyes, it is a better form of Bitcoin. So to me, at some point, it'll do what Bitcoin did. It'll do a 6.9 million X. And because you have stakes in place, you'll realize those gains. Unlike all the other Bitcoiners that sold out on their first 100X, their first 1,000X, 10,000X. And they never got wealthy. They might have gone temporarily rich, but they never got wealthy. Hexicans will be wealthy.
Because we also are building the discipline along with it. Because of the system, it kind of helps you build the discipline.
Yeah, it creates great behaviors.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to look at charts and study all day. You can just go for a walk and work out.
Dude, you know what I mean? I make more fucking money than I've ever made in my life just because Hex is giving me my time back. And literally, it's just me and my friends doing this. We bounce ideas off each other. We make stuff, and we make millions of dollars. Like, it's retarded. Like, I'm literally, I think, just with Hex giving me back my time, allowing me to just do whatever I want, being around another group of like-minded, smart individuals that I'm now friends with, I've earned more money in the past 6 months than I've in my entire life of working wages, working real estate, looking for stocks,
hard have you worked in
all
your
this
life?
stuff.
How fucking hard have you gone for a decade at a time?
All that has been literally negated within 6 months of getting my time back via Hex, and then just focusing on hanging out with cool, like-minded, smart individuals and doing stuff with them, working on projects, and we've made more money than I have in my entire life. It's just crazy.
And you can focus on just other shit. Like, you have goals and stuff. You're like, what? I can work on this shit? What? I thought I had to work 14 hours a day forever.
You got a family. You can spend the whole fucking time with your family now. They're literally working for you while you're hanging out with your kids, your wife, taking them out somewhere nice, going traveling and not having to worry about expenses or bills. You get to focus on the stuff that you really care about and not going in and just clocking in and just breaking your back for another 40, 80-hour work week.
Yeah, and when you're working like that, you kind of are almost brainwashed to spend a lot of money on shit you do not need. You know what I mean? You got the family, the kids running around, you're making $2,000 a week. It's everyone's buying shit all the time. It's you know what I mean?
This is the great behaviors that you were talking about that Hex instills. So it's delaying gratification. realizing that you don't need a lot of this useless shit that you've been buying. Like I literally went around and sold so much of my stuff. Like it might have only added up to a couple $100 or $1,000 after a while, but then I invested that in Hex, and now it's $100,000, $200,000, and it's been earning interest. So this was another thing, Joe, I wanted to show you. On Twitter, there's an account called like $1,200 stimulus check. And if you invested your stimulus check, the first one the government gave you back in April, I think it was 2020, into Hex, which I actually did, you would have minted a little bit over 2 million Hex. And today's prices, it's like worth $2.6 million, or $260,000.
Oh, wow.
So
Jesus.
yeah. So, and that's at our like 80% low. At all time high, it was a couple, or it was like over $1 million. So that was just taking that $1,200 stimulus check that our government gave to us, taxed us back on it.
Yep.
Thank you, government. Appreciate the inflation. Appreciate you taxing us back on it.
Fucking idiots,
I took that money, invested in Hex, and it made me over $250,000, not including interest. And then this is where it gets really wild, right, Joe? 38% seems like a hard number to wrap your mind around, right? That's just a lie. It's not 38%. That's just in terms of Hex, how much you're going to get. Now, when you put that with the price appreciation of the token, you're earning thousands of percent of interest. It's not just the 38% APY. That's just in terms of the token. Guess what? That token appreciates.
So you went from the $1,200 stimulus in 2 years to $250K in Hex.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 1.2 million at the top.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude.
And that's because the price appreciates so fast because no one sells it.
That was just the stimmy check, bro. Like,
that was like the ass wipe shit.
This is like another thing I did, right? Like, so during I won't say the virus name because I don't want Sam to get his new channel pulled down, but I actually contracted it early on, and then they had an option during the COVID Relief Act. If you wanted to, you could pull out your money from your like Roth IRA or any of your IRAs and not get a penalty. So I did that. I've been in the military for I think like 7 or 8 years at the time, and I had nothing in there, right? Like it was like maybe like 30, 35 grand. And I pulled that out penalty free, put that in Hex, bro. Millions of dollars. It is the best place to put your money in. I kid you not. And that's if the thing goes flatline. If it goes flatline, where else are you going to earn 38% on your money religiously? Nowhere. And like I said, that 38% is not even true. When that thing runs, bro, that just multiplies your 38% into thousands of percent. And people just don't even realize that because 38% is hard enough for the common man to wrap their mind around.
This is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Dude, you're so fortunate that you're friends with Sam. Like, I love it. Like when people like fall into this place first, because cryptocurrency is filled with so many pitfalls and booby traps and landmines. Like you have so many people lose everything, right? But there are a few right assets in the space that can change your life. And this is the one. This is the one today that is better than anything else that exists. And you found it.
Yep, you found it at a good time too.
That's awesome.
And that's what I've said. Like you're at a cornerstone in the ecosystem too, where you have the ability to get a 2-for-1 deal going into a new ecosystem that's vertically integrated with some of the richest motherfuckers in the space right now, and 2 new assets that are coming on chain for the first time. Like you have the ability to really make life-changing gains within the next year or two.
This is awesome. I can't wait to get started on this. Jeez.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
you're looking shredded, bro. You look like you might have to take a shit, but you look shredded.
He's in the bathroom, so it could be right after, right before.
I'm gonna end it here. I missed like 3/4 of what was said today, but hopefully it was helpful for people and you and Jesse. Thanks for because I thought it was said in this afterwards. So thank you very much.
You're a god, Sam. You're a god, guys. Get your T-shares before the fork, guys. Make sure you get your T-shares before the fork. Make sure you got your security in line too. And if you have questions about that stuff, don't be afraid to ask.
Molly, you want to say anything else?
Yeah, guys, just keep doing your thing. Like, this is, like I was telling Joe, like, this is the place to be, and it's all about just delayed gratification and holding that right asset for the long term. And this is it. This is the place.
Thank you. And Joe, I'll give you a call after we get off.
All right, sweet. Hey, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
He's like, I got another hour with you, Big Red.
I know, right?
On the phone.
I mean, we could stay in the green room too if Sam's signal stays good.
Well, if you guys can stay live, I'm gonna get away from my computer and mute myself. If you guys are, Joe, if you want to continue, I just can't stand like it dropping in the middle of a conversation every 25 seconds.
Well, you can end it, Sam, and we'll just carry this on in the green room.
Just
Everyone
end it,
got
Sam.
enough.
We'll get ready and set for
Yeah.
tomorrow, and we'll have no issues.
Perfect. Okay, cool. I'm gonna end this broadcast, but we'll also be in the green room. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Don't be playing around like this at 11 a.m. tomorrow either.
Yeah.
Just in and out.